Forget everything you think you know about 90s sci-fi. While Terminator 2 and The Matrix grabbed all the glory, a shadow revolution was happening at the box office bottom. Films that tanked financially but warped reality itself with their ambition. Did Hollywood accidentally bury its most visionary works? Let's uncover the brilliant failures that predicted our digital nightmares before most of us even had email addresses. Number 1. Dark City, 1998. Welcome to a metropolis where it's always night and memories are just another commodity to be stolen. Alex Proyas' Dark City dropped a noir bomb into the sci-fi landscape a year before The Matrix, but audiences completely missed this mind-bending masterpiece. John Murdoch wakes up with amnesia in a city where reality gets physically rewritten at midnight by pale beings called strangers, who inject false memories into sleeping citizens. The film bombed catastrophically, earning just $14 million against its $27 million budget. Critics were divided, with Roger Ebert championing it as the best film of 1998, while mainstream audiences scratched their heads. The stunning Art Deco cityscape, constantly shifting architecture, and atmospheric lighting created a visual language that filmmakers have been stealing from ever since. What makes Dark City truly revolutionary wasn't just its trippy premise. It was its existential question. If your memories aren't real, are you? The film basically whispered the simulation hypothesis into cinema's ear before philosophers made it trendy. Those rotating buildings and reality-bending sequences influenced everything from Inception to The Matrix, which actually reused Dark City's sets. Watch it now, and you'll wonder how audiences miss this twisted gem. Its bleakly beautiful world feels more relevant today as we question our own online identities and manufactured realities. Dark City wasn't just ahead of its time. Time itself was bending around it. Number 2. Gattaca, 1997. Imagine a world where your job interview is a DNA test and your blood is your ID card. Gattaca dropped this terrifying premise on unsuspecting 1997 audiences, and they responded with a collective shrug. Ethan Hawke plays Vincent, a genetically inferior man who borrows another man's genetic identity to pursue his dream of space travel in a society obsessed with genetic perfection. The film tanked at the box office, earning just $12.5 million domestically against a $36 million budget. Critics praised its sleek retro-futurist aesthetic and philosophical depth, but moviegoers chose to watch aliens blow stuff up instead. Andrew Niccol's clinical direction created a sterile world of glass, concrete, and constant genetic surveillance that feels uncomfortably familiar today. What made Gattaca revolutionary wasn't fancy effects or action sequences. It was the eerie stillness of its eugenics dystopia. Every surface gleamed with surgical cleanliness while hiding moral rot. The Bissu film's production design was genius, using vintage cars and classic architecture to create a timeless world that still feels modern. Scientists now cite Gattaca scenarios when discussing genetic discrimination, and NASA once named it the most scientifically accurate sci-fi film. The eeriest part? We're closer to Gattaca's world than ever, with genetic testing companies, CRISPR technology, and biometric surveillance becoming everyday realities. Watching it now feels less like fiction and more like a documentary from a timeline we're racing toward at full speed. Number 3. The 13th Floor, 1999. Computer simulations inside computer simulations inside. You get it. The 13th Floor asked what happens when virtual worlds get so real that nobody can tell the difference, including the simulated people living inside them. Released just weeks after The Matrix, this mind-bender got completely buried, despite tackling similar philosophical territory with more restraint and cerebral horror. The film crash-landed at the box office, earning a pathetic $11.8 million against its $16 million budget. Critics dismissed it as a Matrix wannabe, despite being based on a 1964 novel that pioneered the simulation concept decades earlier. The film's stunning 1930s Los Angeles simulation, created with meticulous detail, offered a visual feast that most viewers never bothered to taste. What makes The 13th Floor extraordinary is its devastating emotional punch. Unlike The Matrix's kung fu liberation fantasy, This film forces you to confront the existential terror of discovering your entire reality is code. When a character realizes they're simulated, the soul-crushing breakdown feels all too human. The film's layered simulation concept has only grown more relevant in our era of deepfakes, VR, and increasingly realistic digital worlds. Its central question, if you can't tell you're in a simulation, does it matter, has literally become a serious academic debate. The 13th Floor didn't just predict our digital anxieties. It's practically a user manual for the philosophical crisis we're still unpacking. Number 4. eXistenZ, 1999. Bioports installed in your spine. Game controllers made from mutated amphibians. Reality layers that fold in on themselves until you forget which world is real. David Cronenberg's eXistenZ took virtual reality and made it wet, squishy, and disturbingly organic during a year when everyone else was obsessing over the Matrix's clean digital aesthetic. The film was a commercial disaster, earning just $2.8 million against its $15 million budget. Critics were divided, with some praising its biological horror, while others found it too bizarre for mainstream consumption. Cronenberg's vision of gaming technology as living tissue, game pods that breathe, controllers with nipples, guns made of bone and teeth, created a uniquely unsettling visualization of technology becoming literally part of us. What makes eXistenZ brilliant is its refusal to separate technology from biology. Unlike the sleek gadgets of most sci-fi, Cronenberg gives us wetware, technology that pulses, bleeds, and gets infected. The film's nested reality structure leaves viewers questioning which layer of the game they're in, creating a disorientation that perfectly mirrors our current struggles with digital addiction. The movie's visceral approach to technological integration feels eerily prophetic in an age of implantable devices and brain-computer interfaces. When characters in eXistenZ plug directly into each other's nervous systems, it's both revolting and intimate. A disturbing metaphor for social media connection that arrived before Facebook was even a concept. 2 decades later, as we willingly surrender more of ourselves to digital worlds, Cronenberg's gooey dystopia feels less like body horror and more like a warning we should have heeded. Number 5. Strange Days, 1995. Imagine experiencing someone else's memories, complete with all physical sensations, from sex to murder, through a device that records directly from the cerebral cortex. Kathryn Bigelow's Strange Days dropped this premise on unprepared audiences in 1995, creating a cyberpunk noir that predicted everything from the dark web to police brutality captured on digital media. The film bombed spectacularly, losing nearly $35 million and effectively ending Bigelow's career until The Hurt Locker resurrected it years later. Critics praised its technical brilliance, but flinched at its unflinching depiction of racial violence and digital voyeurism. James Cameron's script and Bigelow's direction created a gritty Los Angeles on the edge of millennium-triggered collapse that feels alarmingly familiar today. The genius of Strange Days lies in understanding that the most addictive technology isn't escapism. It's experiencing raw reality through someone else's eyes. The film's squid devices, which record first-person experiences for playback, predicted today's live streaming culture, body cameras, and virtual reality decades before they became mainstream. The movie's playback junkies, hooked on experiencing other people's lives, feel like a direct commentary on our current social media dopamine loops. Most prophetically, Strange Days centers on recordings of police brutality against black men and the resulting civil unrest, themes that feel ripped from today's headlines. The film's vision of technology capturing and spreading these realities as undeniable evidence was revolutionary for 1995 and painfully relevant now. Watch it today, and you'll wonder if Bigelow and Cameron had actual time travel technology when crafting this overlooked masterpiece. Number 6. Cube, 1997. 6 strangers wake up in a giant mechanical cube made of interlocking rooms. Some contain deadly traps. No one knows why they're there or who put them there. Vincenzo Natali's ultra-low-budget Canadian thriller Cube took this simple premise and turned it into a claustrophobic nightmare that puts most big-budget sci-fi to shame. Made for a microscopic $365,000, Cube earned just $565,000 in limited release, but found cult immortality on VHS and DVD. Critics were split between those who saw its brilliance and those who dismissed it as a glorified Twilight Zone episode. What they missed was how Natali used mathematical precision and crushing paranoia to create a sci-fi allegory for late-stage capitalism. People trapped in a system they didn't create, forced to use specialized skills to survive, never meeting the architects of their prison. The film's genius lies in its minimalism. Using just 5 primary sets reconfigured with lighting changes and different colored panels, Cube creates a seemingly endless labyrinth. The traps, from acid sprays to razor wire grids, aren't just grotesque spectacle. They symbolize how systems dehumanize people into obstacles or resources. Cube predicted our modern surveillance state and reality TV obsession years before Big Brother premiered. Its premise of people being observed like lab rats navigating a maze feels uncomfortably relevant in our era of constant digital monitoring and algorithmic manipulation. The faceless, bureaucratic nature of the Cube, where not even the engineers understand the whole system, captures the alienation of modern life with disturbing accuracy. This tiny Canadian film, with no stars and barely any budget, managed to tap into existential fears that only grow more relevant with each passing year. Number 7. Event Horizon, 1997. A rescue crew boards a missing experimental spaceship that disappeared into a black hole and returned, changed. Paul W. S. Anderson's Event Horizon was marketed as a space adventure, but delivered something far darker. A haunted house in space where the ghost is a ship possessed by an extra-dimensional hell. The audience walked out. Critics savaged it. The studio panicked and forced massive cuts. The film crash-landed at the box office, earning just $26 million against its $60 million budget. Critics dismissed it as derivative garbage, with one calling it The Shining in Space without the coherence. What they missed was its revolutionary blend of hard sci-fi concepts with supernatural horror. The production design created a ship that looked functional yet menacing. A Gothic cathedral in space with spikes, chambers reminiscent of torture devices, and a gravity drive that opens doors to dimensions where hell is just a word. What makes Event Horizon brilliant isn't just its premise, but its refusal to explain its horrors. Unlike most sci-fi films that rationalize everything, Event Horizon presents extra-dimensional travel as something beyond human comprehension. A kind of cosmic Lovecraftian terror where seeing the truth drives you insane. The notorious Hell Dimension footage, largely cut from the theatrical version, was reportedly so disturbing that film lab technicians thought they had received real snuff footage. The film developed a massive cult following, with horror fans recognizing what mainstream audiences missed. This wasn't just a sci-fi failure, but a groundbreaking fusion of genres that influenced everything from Sunshine to Dead Space. Original footage remains lost, with only a VHS workprint surviving, making a proper director's cut impossible. Today's audiences, desensitized by decades of horror, might finally be ready for the film's unapologetic vision of cosmic terror. Number 8. Starship Troopers, 1997. Giant bugs explode in showers of neon blue goo, while pretty fascists in Nazi-inspired uniforms cheer. Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers came disguised as a brainless action flick, but was actually a vicious satire of military propaganda, jingoism, and the dehumanizing nature of warfare. Most viewers and critics completely missed the joke. The film underperformed at the box office, earning $121 million worldwide against a $105 million budget, barely breaking even after marketing costs. Critics savaged it, with the Washington Post calling it gloriously stupid. They failed to recognize Verhoeven's intentional use of beautiful, vapid actors delivering wooden dialogue while participating in a fascist military system presented as normal and desirable. The genius of Starship Troopers lies in its commitment to the bit, never winking at the audience or breaking character. The propaganda style, "Would you like to know more?" news segments, the casual acceptance of corporal punishment, and the society where citizenship must be earned through military service create a disturbingly coherent fascist world. Verhoeven, who grew up in Nazi-occupied Netherlands, crafted a film that doesn't just depict fascism, but tricks viewers into cheering for it. The film's prescience is uncomfortable. Its vision of endless war against a dehumanized other, militarized citizenship, and media manipulation as tools of the state feels more relevant now than in 1997. What initially looked like a cartoon version of fascism increasingly resembles actual political movements. Starship Troopers didn't flop because it was bad. It flopped because it was too good at holding up a mirror to militaristic impulses that audiences preferred not to acknowledge. Its transformation from misunderstood flop to brilliant satire stands as one of cinema's greatest critical reassessments. Number 9, The Fifth Element, 1997. A flying taxi driver teams up with an orange-haired space goddess to collect elemental stones that will stop a planet-sized evil from destroying Earth. Luc Besson's The Fifth Element threw out the sci-fi rulebook and replaced it with a neon explosion of French comic book aesthetics, haute couture costumes, and opera-singing blue aliens. American audiences didn't know what hit them. While eventually profitable internationally, the film underperformed in North America, earning just $63 million domestically against its $90 million budget. Critics were wildly divided, with some calling it visionary, while others dismissed it as an incoherent mess. What they missed was how Besson created a complete universe with its own internal logic, fashion, language, and even fast food. Designer Jean-Paul Gaultier's 1954 costumes reimagined future clothing as high fashion rather than generic jumpsuits, while production designer Dan Weil built a vertically stacked New York with flying car lanes, inspired by Asian megacities. What makes The Fifth Element brilliant is its unapologetic joyfulness in a decade where sci-fi had become grimly serious. Bruce Willis plays against type as the bewildered everyman rather than the action hero. Mila Jovovich creates an innocent yet powerful Lilu with her own emotional journey. And Chris Tucker's Ruby Road, a gender-bending radio personality in leopard print bodysuits, shocked 1997 audiences, but feels like a prescient vision of today's influencer culture. The film's practical effects and miniatures give it a tangible quality missing from CGI-dominated contemporaries, while its maximalist visual approach influenced everything from Guardians of the Galaxy to Valerian. 25 years later, its retro-futurist vision looks more timeless than the realistic computer graphics of its era. The Fifth Element wasn't just ahead of its time, it created its own time, and we're still catching up to its wavelength. Number 10, 12 Monkeys, 1995. A time traveler from a post-apocalyptic future is sent back to the 1990s to gather information about a virus that will wipe out most of humanity. Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys took this premise and twisted it into a pretzel of temporal paradoxes, questionable sanity, and devastatingly bleak fatalism that mainstream audiences weren't prepared for. Though not a complete financial disaster, the film underperformed relative to expectations, earning $57 million domestically against its $29 million budget. Critics praised its visual inventiveness, but many viewers found its nonlinear narrative and ambiguous ending frustrating. Gilliam's signature visual chaos, wide-angle distortion, cluttered frames, institutional decay, created a disorienting experience that perfectly matched its protagonist's fractured mental state. What makes 12 Monkeys brilliant is its refusal to provide easy answers or hero moments. Brad Pitt's manic, Oscar-nominated performance as mental patient, Jeffrey Goins shattered his heartthrob image, while Bruce Willis stripped away all action hero tropes to play James Cole, a broken man doubting his own sanity. The film's depiction of time travel, as a closed loop where changing the past is impossible, was a revolutionary rejection of sci-fi's typically optimistic view of altering destiny. The film's vision of quarantine protocols, hazmat suits, and a world transformed by viral devastation feels uncomfortably familiar in our post-COVID reality. Its exploration of memory as unreliable and malleable predated similar themes in films like Memento and Inception. Most disturbingly prophetic is its portrayal of scientists being ignored until it's too late, a scenario we've now lived through. 12 Monkeys wasn't just telling a story about a fictional pandemic, it was warning us about how we would react to a real one. Number 11, Johnny Mnemonic, 1995. A data courier with 320 GB of stolen corporate data stored in his brain must download it before it kills him. In 1995, when most home computers had maybe 500 MB of storage, this premise from William Gibson's cyberpunk story felt like pure fantasy. Audiences laughed at Keanu Reeves battling a dolphin cyborg hacker and Ice-T leading a gang of tech revolutionaries called the Low-Techs. Turns out, Johnny Mnemonic wasn't ridiculous. It was just early. The film was a box office catastrophe, earning just $19 million against its $26 million budget. Critics eviscerated it, with the Washington Post calling it one of the worst movies ever made. Studio interference butchered director Robert Longo's vision, cutting his preferred 103-minute version to 96 minutes of incoherence. Yet buried beneath its cheesy effects and Reeves's notoriously wooden performance was an eerily accurate prediction of our digital future. What makes Johnny Mnemonic brilliant in retrospect is how much it got right. Information as the most valuable currency? Check. Corporations controlling vital medical research? Check. A digital divide between tech haves and have-nots? Absolutely. The film even predicted neural implants, VR interfaces, and data transmission causing physical illness. NAS in the movie feels like a metaphor for digital addiction. Gibson himself wrote the screenplay, adapting his 1981 short story, while adding elements that would later appear in Neuromancer. The film's vision of the internet as a navigable visual space predated similar concepts in The Matrix, which would redeem Keanu's cyberpunk credentials 4 years later. Most prophetically, Johnny Mnemonic depicted a world where people sacrifice their humanity to become vessels for data, an uncomfortable metaphor for our current social media landscape. This messy, maligned film might have been the most accurate prediction of our digital dystopia, smuggled inside a B-movie no one took seriously. Number 12. Galaxy Quest, 1999. Washed-up actors from a canceled sci-fi TV show are kidnapped by aliens who believe their series was historical documentation. Dean Parisot's Galaxy Quest took this ridiculous premise and turned it into not just the best Star Trek movie never made, but also a loving examination of fandom, celebrity, and the power of storytelling. Audiences expecting a cheap parody found something with far more heart than anyone anticipated. The film performed modestly at the box office, earning $90 million worldwide against a $45 million budget, but wasn't the blockbuster DreamWorks hoped for during the 1999 holiday season. Critics generally liked it, but many dismissed it as lightweight comedy rather than recognizing its genre-transcending brilliance. Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, and Alan Rickman delivered career-defining performances that balanced comedy with genuine emotion, while the film's special effects stood toe-to-toe with serious sci-fi productions. What makes Galaxy Quest extraordinary is its refusal to mock its subject matter. Instead of punching down at sci-fi fans, it celebrates their knowledge and devotion. The film captures how fictional stories can inspire real courage, community, and moral frameworks. When the actors must become their characters for real, the transformation isn't just funny, it's genuinely moving. The film has aged like fine wine, with its exploration of parasocial relationships between fans and celebrities feeling more relevant in our social media age. Its depiction of fans knowing the fictional world better than its creators predicted countless internet debates about canon and continuity. Even real Star Trek actors acknowledged Galaxy Quest captured their experience, with Patrick Stewart admitting it made him cry and calling it brilliant. In an era where fandom has become a dominant cultural force, Galaxy Quest didn't just parody sci-fi conventions, it predicted how fictional universes would become meaningful alternatives to reality for millions of people. Number 13. Blade Runner, Director's Cut, 1992. Harrison Ford hunts artificial humans in a perpetually rainy, neon-soaked Los Angeles where corporations tower above the masses like gods. Ridley Scott's original Blade Runner bombed in 1982, but its 1992 director's cut, which removed the hated voiceover, restored the ambiguous ending, and added the unicorn dream, rewrote cinematic history while still failing to find a mainstream audience. The director's cut received a limited theatrical release, earning just $3.7 million, proving audiences still weren't ready for its philosophical complexity. Critics who dismissed the original suddenly hailed it as visionary, creating one of the greatest critical reversals in film history. The restoration of Scott's vision revealed a film that wasn't just asking if machines could become human, but questioning whether humans were that special to begin with. What makes the director's cut brilliant is how it transforms the film from a neo-noir detective story into an existential meditation on memory, identity, and what constitutes humanity. Without Ford's explanatory voiceover, viewers must actively engage with the film's moral ambiguities. The restored unicorn dream sequence suggests Deckard himself may be a replicant, a twist that radically changes everything that came before. The film's influence is incalculable. Its lived-in, multicultural future where corporations dominate, the environment is ruined, and technology creates new forms of exploitation has become the default visual language for depicting the future. From architecture to fashion to user interfaces, Blade Runner's DNA is embedded in our cultural imagination of what's to come. The director's cut proved that sometimes commercial failure is just artistic vision temporarily misunderstood. Its transformation from box office disaster to cornerstone of cinema is the ultimate vindication for films on this list. Proof that sometimes the most brilliant visions are the ones audiences initially reject. So, which of these brilliant failures hit you hardest? The psychological puzzle boxes of Dark City and the 13th Floor, the prophetic warnings of Strange Days and Johnny Mnemonic, or the misunderstood satire of Starship Troopers? Drop your thoughts below. The real question isn't why these films flopped. It's whether we've finally caught up to their warnings about technology, identity, and reality itself. Are we living in the futures they tried to warn us about?